In the blood of this old man is the signature of ancient Israel. He is a black African, lives in a village in southern Zimbabwe, 4,000 miles from Jerusalem, and has never been there. But the genetic marker that was passed down for thousands of years through the male line, only among the descendants of Jewish priests, was found in him. And when geneticists took blood from the men of his clan, the Buba clan, almost half of them carried this sacred mark. More often than the Jews they were looking for it among. These people call themselves the Lemba. They do not eat pork, circumcise their sons on the 8th day, do not light a fire in the house 1 day a week, and for almost 2,000 years they have whispered the same thing. We came from the north, from a city called Sena, and our ancestors were Jews. They also have a drum that cannot be touched, and, they say, kills a stranger who dares to touch it. Those who heard this story called it the African Ark of the Covenant. And 3 questions remain that are worth lingering on. How did the marker, which on Earth was carried only by one priestly line, end up in the veins of black Africans on the other side of the planet? Who brought it here? And what force drove these people across half a continent, making them guard their secret at the cost of their lives? And the last one, which is already about you personally. If an entire people carried in their blood for 2,000 years something no one around them suspected, then what do you carry within yourself and not know it? The answer begins far from Jerusalem, in a laboratory in Johannesburg, where the Lemba's blood was first read instead of their legend. The Lemba frustrated ethnographers for 100 years. Outwardly, they were ordinary Southern Africans, speaking the languages of neighboring Bantu peoples, living among the Venda and the Shona. But they behaved as if they had come from another world. No pork, strict ritual slaughter of livestock, circumcision, marriages only within their own group. European missionaries as early as the 19th century shrugged and invented theories, from a lost tribe of Israel to settled Arab traders. And the Lemba themselves, year after year, kept repeating without hesitation, "We are strangers here by blood. Our fathers were not from here." No one could prove it. Until 2 people who read not legend but genes took up the case. In 1996, geneticists Amanda Spurtle and Treffer Jenkins took the Y-chromosome from Lemba men, the part of DNA passed from father to son almost unchanged, like a surname written directly into the genes. And they found something that should not have been there in this part of Africa. More than half of the Lemba male lines turned out to be not local, African, but Middle Eastern in origin. The tradition that had been mocked for 100 years suddenly had support in blood. But their instruments could say Semitic and could not say Jewish. And that, as it would turn out, are 2 very different things. A more precise tool was needed, and a person who knew exactly what to look for. That tool was already being born at the other end of science. Geneticist Karl Skorecki asked his colleagues a simple question. If the priesthood in Judaism has been passed from father to son since biblical times, then all true Kohanim, the descendants of that line, should carry one shared trace in their Y chromosome. And the trace was found. A stable genetic difference between those who called themselves descendants of priests and the rest of the Jews, among both Ashkenazim and Sephardim. All that remained was to give this trace an exact name and calculate how old it was. What was described in the studies of the late 1990s was called the Cohen modal haplotype, a specific combination of markers on the Y chromosome, a kind of genetic seal of the priestly line. For short, CMH. This seal was found in almost 92% of the tested Kohanim, 97 out of 106 people. And when the age of their common ancestor was calculated, it came out to between 2,100 and 3,250 years ago, exactly the era between the Exodus and the destruction of the First Temple. And it was this priestly seal that one researcher decided to apply to the blood of an African tribe. In 2000, British geneticist Mark Thomas, together with Tudor Parfitt, who had spent years among the Lemba, did exactly that. Among all the Lemba, 8.8% of the men carried the priestly seal, already incredible for Africa. But when the sample was broken down by clan, one set of numbers made them read the table twice. the Buba clan, which the Lemba themselves regard as the oldest, priestly clan. Almost half of Buba men carried the Cohen marker. For comparison, in the same study, about 15% of Ashkenazi Jews carried it, and about 10% of Sephardic Jews. In the African clan, the marker appeared more often than among the Jews it was being sought among. The question remained, how is that even possible? Where did such a concentration in one clan come from? This is where what geneticists call the founder effect comes into play. When a small group breaks away from everyone around them and, for thousands of years, takes wives and husbands only from within itself, the marker once brought by a few founding men is not diluted by outside blood. It accumulates from generation to generation until it becomes almost a family signature. And in a small group, its share is also pushed around by chance, by genetic drift, which can boost one line and erase another. The Lemba's isolation, which kept them separate for centuries, itself preserved their ancient male line almost untouched, like a fly in amber. But the founder effect explains why there is so much of the marker. It does not explain how it got to southern Africa in the first place. For the Lemba themselves, the answer had always been the same. They came from the north, from a city called Sena. They lost it, crossed water, built a new Sena, lost it again, and so, generation after generation, moved farther south until they settled between the rivers of southern Africa. The men married local women but kept their male line closed to outsiders. A campfire song, until genetics made it almost literal. The Middle Eastern male lines of the Lemba belong to the branch designated J1, and within it to the sub-branch JP58. This line arose about 9,500 years ago at the crossroads of the Arabian Peninsula, the Levant, and southern Mesopotamia, exactly the world from which many Jewish male lines also come. The road from the north that the Lemba sang about was written into their Y-chromosome letter for letter. And yet, this road had more than one traveler. Here hides the honest caveat that Thomas himself made. A Semitic marker and a Jewish marker are not the same thing. For centuries, Arab traders from Hadramaut in Yemen traveled the same waters and the same routes. And Sena still exists on the map of Yemen today. The blood spoke Middle East with confidence. But whether it was speaking specifically of Jewish priests was already an interpretation. To understand who could have taken this route, it is worth looking at the world that lay between Arabia and southern Africa. And a world capable of bringing such a person to the far south of the continent really did exist. For more than 1,000 years, a maritime trade network stretched along Africa's eastern coast, linking the Arabian Peninsula, the Swahili coast, and the interior where the walls of Great Zimbabwe rose from stone. Gold, ivory, and hides went out. Textiles, beads, and glassware from distant lands came in. And along with goods, people, their names, their faith, and their blood moved along the same roads. For a man from the Middle East to end up among African villages thousands of miles from home, a ship, a favorable monsoon, and a couple of generations of patience would have been enough. No miracle required. But this blood told only half the story, because all of this concerns only the male line. The Lemba's maternal lines, their mitochondrial DNA, passed from mother to child, are African, indistinguishable from their neighbors. Men from the north, local women from the south, a people born at the meeting point of two worlds. For almost 10 years, Thomas's findings stood as proven truth. Descendants of Jewish priests live in Africa. Then science did what it does best. It came back and checked itself. The problem was the seal itself. That Cohen haplotype rested on only 6 markers, and 6 markers are a crude sieve. In 2009, Michael Hammer's group examined the seal under a new generation microscope and found something uncomfortable. The same 6-marker trace appears in 2 completely different branches of the family tree, in J1 and in J2, which split tens of thousands of years ago. What is more, it is also carried by people with no connection to Jews. The seal, once thought to be the unique signature of one line, turned out to be more like a common handwriting style of an entire region. And the longer scientists looked, the farther this marker drifted from the priests. Geneticist Almut Nabel and her colleagues found that the same 6-marker trace is only one mutation step away from the most common male line among Kurdish Muslims, people with no connection to the temple priesthood of Israel. And when geneticist Sergio Tofanelli tried to estimate the age of this marker's common ancestor, the range of estimates sometimes stretched far beyond the history of the Kohanim itself, thousands of years deeper, to an era when there simply were no priests yet. The marker, it turned out, may be older than the story it was being used to tell. So it was time to return to the Lemba themselves, this time with a corrected, stricter tool. To fix the marker, Hammer proposed an expanded version, a seal made up of far more markers, impossible to fake by chance. And with this stricter sieve, South African geneticist Himla Sudyal returned to the Lemba. In 2013, she collected 261 men, Lemba, their Zimbabwean relatives the Remba, nearby Venda, and Jews. The old, rough seal was indeed found in 24 people. But the strict, expanded version, the one that separates a true priestly line from those that merely resemble it, was not found in a single Lemba. Not one. Sudyal's conclusion was phrased dryly and mercilessly. These data do not support previous claims of Jewish origin for the Lemba. This whole story is 7 cuts through one bloodline. 100 years of strange customs nobody believed in. The first cut by Spurtle and Jenkins. More than half of the Lemba male lines are from the Middle East. The priest's seal, found in nearly all Kohanim and aged to 3,000 years. The same seal in almost half of the Buba clan, more often than among the Jews themselves. The founder effect, preserving it in an isolated people. The road from the north, recorded in the JP 58 branch. Arab traders and Yemen's Sena, confusing Jew with Semite. African mothers, giving the people the other half of their blood. And finally, Sudyal's strict seal, finding nothing at all among the Lemba. From a loud sensation to a quiet doubt. But doubt did not erase everything. And here is what survived. Every instrument, nearly 3/4 of the Lemba male lines trace back to the Middle East. No reanalysis has overturned that. Their male ancestors really did come from the north and really did settle among African women in the south. That this people was born at the meeting point of 2 worlds is confirmed by the DNA itself. Only one link in the whole chain came into question. That the incoming men were specifically Jewish priests, and not, say, Arab traders who had traveled those same sea routes for centuries. On the main question, science gave the Lemba neither a yes nor a no. It answered, "It is more complicated than you wanted." Which, if you think about it, is the most honest answer blood can give. And now, honestly, about the promise on the cover. A regular DNA test will not tell you descendant of the Kohanim, and will not say whether the man who came to the Lemba from the north was a Jew. It will show the branch of your male line and your ancestry percentages, and stop there. Hebrew in the blood is a question mark, and the Lemba earned that question mark honestly. The Middle Eastern trace in their veins is real and proven, while the label Jewish priests, science has attached and detached in turn. The same goes for the sacred drum. The story of it as the African Ark of the Covenant was largely brought to the world by Parfit himself, and many Lemba, if asked directly, do not identify their Ngoma with the Ark at all. Sacred drums that must not touch the ground are an ancient African tradition in their own right. This is a tradition, and it deserves respect precisely as a tradition, no more and no less. Let's return to that old man from southern Zimbabwe where we began. The man who does not eat pork and circumcises his grandsons on the 8th day. His tradition says one thing, his blood says almost the same, and yet not quite. And the laboratory's second verdict did not cancel either his customs or his songs about Sena. Blood can clarify where your fathers came from, but it is not what decides who you wake up as every morning. And now a question for you. Whose roads, whose migrations, whose lost cities are written in your blood in letters you have not yet learned to read? If your family has a secret like that, Write about it in the comments and say how far you have been able to trace it. Here we go deep into the blood that holds the memory of entire peoples, with real research behind every word.